Welcome to Counseling Talk. Juan here with you, and we have Collin Weeks, a licensed professional counselor, and he's gonna help us. He's really gonna dive into the subject of cognitive distortions. And you may be out there going, "What is this cognitive distortions?" He's going to be our go-to person. He's gonna teach us what it is, how do we address it, how do we move forward from life. So, Collin, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Before we dive into the topic, give the audience a little bit about who you are. Why did you get into this field of professional counseling, of mental health?
Okay, well, my name is Collin Weeks. I am a licensed professional counselor here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm actually from the Caribbean, grew up in the Caribbean, was born in the Caribbean. Group of 32 islands in the Caribbean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Then I moved to Trinidad, which is a more well-known island, Trinidad and Tobago. I never had any aspirations of becoming a counselor until I became a flight attendant. So when I tell people this story, they're like, "Wow, you were a flight attendant?" Yes, I was a flight attendant for almost 9 years, and went to school, put myself through school as a flight attendant, and so it was. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Let me ask real quick, because my thought is a flight attendant. I mean, that is some practical, hands-on counseling experience.
Exactly.
Right? It's like hitting your barber up.
Exactly. So that's where I'm going. So it kind of started even earlier than that, being involved in church and having a leadership role in church as a young person, and having to offer some sort of counseling to the youth or members of the church. And so as I fast forward to being a flight attendant, you're exactly right, Juan. I had several roles. I served, I ensured that people were safe, but I also, people at 30,000 feet in the air love to talk and look for someone to talk to. And sometimes I was that person. And so that is what kind of led me to get into the field. It just became the next natural thing for me to do. And that's what I did. So now I'm no longer a flight attendant, but I'm a therapist.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, you worded that perfectly. I mean, you're right. Like, I get on a plane and I struggle with anxiety in my life, and those out there, I think you know that. So, when I'm up there, I look for someone to talk to. I'm like, who's going to let me borrow their ear for like the next hour of this flight so I can calm my shit down?
Hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours.
Yeah, and you were that person. So it really put you in a position, like you said, of support, of making sure that those on the flight felt safe. And then you're doing very much the same thing in the field of professional counseling.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah. Pretty much the same thing, but only more training, and I get some pay for doing it.
Yeah, there you go. No more of those snacks up there.
No.
So let's go into the topic. What is a cognitive distortion?
Well, in simple terms, a cognitive distortion is a skewed perception of reality, of events. And it has a lot to do with thought patterns and how we think about things and how we perceive things, and the judgments that we make about these things in our lives. I have a simpler term in which I use with my clients to describe cognitive distortions. I call them stinking thinking.
Stinking thinking. I like that.
Yeah, stinking thinking. And so it's perceptions in reality. Oftentimes there are distortions about how we think about ourselves, how we think about others, and how we think about the world. So that's basically what these distortions are, exactly as it is in the word: cognitive distortions or thinking errors. Okay. That's basically what those are.
Nice. And how does that play out? Like, let's say Bob is walking down the street. How would he know that as he's listening to you, he's going, you know what? I'm I'm acting on stinking thinking, a cognitive distortion.
Well, usually cognitive distortions are, well, they are always negative. Um, when you look at a person may be very pessimistic,
Hmm.
not optimistic about life, not optimistic about their own lives and about the world. And we know that there are a lot of things that are happening in the world right now that would give us reason to be pessimistic. But these types of distortions always lead to some type of negative mood, negative thoughts. They 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 never end up or end in joyous moments. So if Bob is walking down the road and he sees a dog uh, coming towards him with his owner, he may have had an experience with dogs or may have been told by his parents that dogs are not good. So he sees this dog, this little chihuahua or a small, cute little puppy, and immediately he begins to think this dog is going to bite me. Um, it's a danger to me. Um, uh, all dogs are bad. All dogs are evil. And so, with this thought process, Bob now begins to try to get to the other side of the road, get away from the dog. And in reality, Bob doesn't have any type of evidence to prove that this particular dog is a danger to him.
And when you say
And so,
evidence,
yeah,
like rational, like in the moment, he's on the street, rationally, there's like no evidence there.
none.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
just based on so his thought processes have skewed, have distorted
Hmm.
the reality. Now it is possible that this dog might be dangerous, but it's also possible that it's not. And
Yeah.
so our thoughts, whenever there's a situation, when we look at cognitive behavioral things and changing behavior, uh, when there are situations, our thoughts affect our emotions, and then our emotions affect our behaviors. So in Bob's situation, his thought about dogs in general would affect his emotions, where he feels fear or he feels anxious, and that in turn will affect his behaviors, which would be, trying to avoid the dog and stuff like that. And then in that scenario, nothing changes because he's maintained that distorted view about dogs.
Okay, so and you have, I guess I pulled from there like this link. You've got your situation, right? He's heading down, walking down the street, feeling good, and then comes that trigger or that dog, and then it starts to cause these thoughts to come in, the stinking thinking, the cognitive distortions, and that's where those emotions come in, the fear, and then the behavior
Yes,
as far as getting on the other side of the street. Now,
correct.
let's say that you magically show up. You're like, "Hey, it's me, therapist Collin." What
Hmm.
would you do in that situation? How would you be able to help Bob or just anyone listening? Where we're kind of raising our hand and we're going, "Yeah, I've got a little bit of that stinking thinking. What can I do in those type of situations?"
Well, one of the things that you could do is to identify what the distortion is, kind of speak to yourself and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why am I fearful? Why am I thinking this way? And once you identify um, the distorted thinking, then you examine the evidence. Now, is there evidence for what I believe? Is it true? Is it true? How can I prove that the way I'm thinking is accurate? So
Okay.
let me give you an example, another example. Um, let's say you and I go to a local Walmart. We're friends, and we happen to be at the local Walmart at the same time.
Okay.
And we kind of we're walking towards each other. Um, I wave at you and you do not respond to me. We go way back. You don't respond. You didn't say hi or anything.
Doesn't sound
The
like me.
one of the cognitive distortions that I'm explaining here is jumping to conclusions. So based on that scenario, now I go home. I tell my wife, I saw Juan in the grocery store, and I saw him in the grocery store, and Juan did not say hi to me. I waved, he didn't say hi to me. He doesn't like me. I did something to him that caused him not to like me. And I go with that. I run with that. I hold on to that. Well, the reality could be one that I do wear corrective lenses. I wear contacts. The reality is that it's possible that I wasn't wearing my glasses, I wasn't wearing my contacts, and I have poor vision and I didn't see you. But because I ran with that distorted thinking,
Mhm.
I now have some issues with you as my friend. So do you see how that way of thinking without examining the evidence? I never examined. I never said to myself, well, it's possible that he didn't see me, or but because I ran with that situation, or maybe you're wearing glasses. Well, that's a bad explanation. You're wearing glasses. You didn't see me, and I waved at you. You didn't wave back, and I'm thinking, well, Juan is mad at me for some reason. When the reality is that you weren't wearing your glasses. That's the better. I should have flipped that around. The reality is that you weren't wearing your glasses, and that's why you didn't see me. Yeah. But I run with the idea that you're mad at me.
No, that makes sense. So it kind of seems that, and I mean, you described it so perfectly. Where we're at Walmart, even though I'm a Target man. I don't know. I'll say 50-50. Walmart, Target. Just me, Walmart. Me and the wife, Target. Too much information. But it kind of seems like those are situations where maybe we need to build like this inner superpower strength of being able to challenge our thoughts, right? I see you and I'm like, man, that's my boy Collin. How's he doing? I want to say something to him. But then the thoughts come in, I waved, he didn't say anything. And then I got to challenge myself, right? Pull that inner strength, inner healing, and say, okay, Juan, challenge yourself. Maybe your glasses weren't on. Maybe he didn't see you. Maybe he's daydreaming. I daydream sometimes.
Yeah.
And then those type of thoughts, right? So those would be like in the clinical side, you and I know that those would be coping skills. That's what I want to throw into the equation to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes we're so brought up to kind of go by what we see, that we're not really taught to question, well, is this fact or is it reality? And the danger with cognitive distortions and stinking thinking is that if they're continued and they become predominant in our lives, they can lead to other mental health issues such as depression and anxiety.
Yeah. And even during those moments, I assume there's symptoms or symptomology connected to either depression or anxiety. Like I see you, and when I see you at Walmart, I'm like, man, he's my friend. We have a great relationship. And then when you don't react the way that I want you to react, that could bring in worry, sadness, maybe lethargy, all of those symptoms.
Right. And even when it comes to anxiety, and I'll give you an example. In my flying days, I was working at the front of the aircraft, and this gentleman came on with his wife. As soon as he came on the aircraft, he ran back out. And he had been in the military for years. He was in the Air Force, and he flew, but he was anxious about flying. He had an anxiety attack, and preventing him from boarding that flight and getting to his destination on time.
That's a good example. So it seems like, with cognitive distortions, we also got to keep up with our own history as far as, do I struggle with anxiety? Do I struggle with depression, bipolar disorder, or even our upbringing?
Mhm.
Myself being born in the Dominican Republic, making sure that I know, how I see life, how I see individuals, and then going into that, inner mindset of why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Why am I thinking this way? All of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you painted a really good picture of cognitive distortions all the way from, why it's an issue to how can we overcome this challenge? How can we move forward in life?
Yeah, and I wanted to mention some of the most common ones that people might be
Please do.
familiar with. So a common one is personalization, and I have a family member that struggles with that. Personalization is that everything that happens um, is my fault. It's uh, it's it's as a result of me. Um, if in that whole Walmart situation, you didn't say hi to me, so it's something that I did. Or, um, you know, people, the cashier at Walmart didn't look at me, so it's something that I did. And you make everything personal
Yeah.
and make everything about you, and those are the negative things. Um, so that's an example of personalization. Another good example of a cognitive distortion is black and white thinking. Um, a lot of people engage in that. It's this or that, and there's no middle ground. There's no in between, and that can get a person into in a lot of issues and a lot of trouble as well, because
Yeah.
they're not able to have any insight or foresight about their current situation. They just see it in black and white terms. Someone like that can benefit from learning to think in shades of gray, and that would include, again, challenging those thoughts, Juan, that come to our mind. I heard a statement said, and I'm not going to claim it, but I don't know where it came from, but the statement was, we cannot prevent birds from flying over our heads, but we can prevent them from landing and building a nest. And
Mm,
if you were to think of birds as thoughts, that makes a lot of sense. We
yes.
have crazy thoughts all the time. I had crazy thoughts today, but am I going to grab that thought like a piece of meat, put some seasoning on there, marinate it for days and days? You know, the thoughts can fly over my head, but I don't have to dwell on
Yeah. I like that. I need to do a Google search on that bird's nest. That's deep and it resonates.
them. Yeah,
I may
yeah.
have to borrow that from you, Colin. Take that back to the counseling office.
Well, well. I mean, you could borrow it. It's not mine, so you can do whatever you can do whatever you want with it.
You know what I'll do? I'll reference this episode every time I'm sitting down, working with a patient. I'll reference this episode.
Yeah. I have one more that I'd like to
Share it,
share.
please. Please do, man.
It's now when I say this in counseling, some people they laugh or they giggle or they feel embarrassed. It's called masturbation. Okay.
See why?
Yes. Okay. So that's when people use the words must and should in a context where uh, they are making themselves do things, or they desire to do things in life. When you use these musts and shoulds, for example, I must get an A in that test. I must be the first, come first in the marathon,
Mhm.
or I must have this girl, and I should do this and should do that. What you actually do is that you put yourself in a box, and you put um, some some not needed or unneeded pressure on yourself. A person that does that can become very rigid, because what then happens, Juan, when you don't get the A, when you don't get the girl, when you don't come first in the marathon, what happens to that person? That person now begins to internalize and starts to have these uh, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, whatever,
Mhm.
because they felt that they did not accomplish what they thought that they should have accomplished. So one way to deal with that is to allow yourself an opportunity to to use terms or phrases like, well, it would be good if I got an A today, or it would be great if I came first in the marathon. So you leaving that possibility. It would be great, but if I don't, it's okay. So you're not so hard on yourself and so stringent and not giving yourself any flexibility for second or third place, or not getting that girl of your dream.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of you're driving down the road and it's a dead end. Being able to work through it as a detour.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And you
Exactly.
made it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's kind of like, it's almost like the black and white thinking too. Some
Yeah.
aspects of that. Yeah.
I like the way that you painted a picture of each one of those distortions, because I think sometimes if we're struggling with stinking thinking, it may for a lot of us just relate to bad thoughts or perceiving things in the wrong way. But what you did just a few minutes ago by painting a picture on all three of those categories, it allows us, even me here sitting down going, okay, I got to increase my level of mindfulness. I got to be
Mm-hmm.
able to question myself. Juan, what type of thoughts are you having? Juan, are these thoughts allowing you to move forward in life, or
Right.
you hitting a dead end road? So
Right.
that's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask before we close up here, you've done such an amazing job here. And I'm saying that now like an amazing job as if we were in a job interview, but we're not in a job interview. um, no, your level of expertise for understanding cognitive distortions is, it's, yeah, I can't even find the words right now. So if people want to find you, if people are like, man, I want to be able to break bread with Collin. I want to be able to see if he can help me move forward, support me in addressing cognitive distortions or addressing mental health issues that are impacting
Mhm.
life. How can people reach out to you?
Well, I do have a website. My private practice it's the Dexter Institute, LLC. And if you type the Dexter Institute LLC in psychology today, my profile will come up, or you can go to www.thedexterinstitute.com, and there you'll find my website and all the issues, the things that I deal with in private practice, such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, individual and some couples counseling as well. My telephone number is 614-212-4622. That's another way that I can be reached. There's a 15-minute free consultation if someone wants to call and get in contact with me that way.
Oh, nice. 15 minutes. Take advantage of that, guys. I may have to build up some of those increments there from my end to Collin
Right.
as far as cognitive distortions.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the time you've given to Counseling
Oh,
Talk
you're
and to the
welcome.
audience.
You're welcome.
Thank you.